Well, they have everybody thinking that entrepreneurship is done one way. Innovate, new idea, change the world. If you don't have something new, your idea is important. If you don't have something new, you're never going to make it. And in my experience in business, it's the exact opposite. You can get paid very well to do simple things.
How do you get them those A-level people?
Hiring and firing is very expensive. I found that if you want to see or get quality work out of somebody, find a way to test them before you hire them. And this is the best career advice that I was ever given. One of my mentors said, look down the hall at what winning looks like. If you play a game, what is the life like, not the income, what is the life like of the people who win that game over the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, the growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Nick Huber on the podcast. He is a no-fluff entrepreneur. He's scaled from college moving trucks to a $100 million real estate portfolio, and he now teaches other people how to do the same thing through bold, brutally honest content. And special surprise, he has a book that just launched. Super exciting stuff. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Jules, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, we have so many branches that we could go here. Normally people come on here, they've got something that they've done, something that they've achieved, but you have so many things that you've achieved. It was actually I wasn't even quite sure where to start, but I would like to start that one of the stories in your book reminded me a little bit of Seth MacFarlane, the guy who created the Family Guy, and when he was in school, his college professor told him hey, if you want the industry to take you seriously, okay, you have to give up this childish humor. Nobody wants this, right? And clearly that was not the case. People love the Family Guy. People love Seth MacFarlane. And I feel like one of your college professors told you something similar about your business idea, that it was too small. Why don't you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I found myself 2011, I started a little business called Storage Squad. I did pickup and delivery storage for students. And naturally, I dove all in on entrepreneurship. My senior year, I took a ton of entrepreneurship courses. One of those courses was the typical, curriculum of a entrepreneur course, and you go in and you pitch your idea on day one, and then you work on your idea the entire semester. It was 25 kids in the class. 24 of them had tech startups, new app ideas, things that they were going to invent. And I had a service company that picked up and delivered boxes. And naturally, when I pitched that idea, the professor said, okay, what's your moat? How are you going to scale that business? What makes you different than the 20 other companies who already do this? And I didn't have a good answer. My answer was, I'm just going to answer the phone and I'm going to do things a little bit better than the competition out there doing it. Well, you fast forward 10 years and I've been able to build a pretty successful group of companies. And unfortunately, most of the folks in that class who had brand new ideas went and got jobs. So that's what my book is all about. That's what I'm all about, is doing common things uncommonly well and thinking about entrepreneurship in a new way and thinking about business opportunity in a new way. Because the media, whether it be social media, Shark Tank, Product Hunt, all these autobiographies of tech titans, which are unbelievable people, they have everybody thinking that entrepreneurship is done one way. Innovate, new idea, change the world. If you don't have something new, your idea is important. If you don't have something new, you're never going to make it. And in my experience in business, it's the exact opposite. You can get paid very well to do simple things. And you can look out there at companies that exist offering services now, and you can find a way to compete just a little bit better. So that's a good starting point, because that's my entire mantra.
Yeah, doing common things uncommonly well is so smart. And it reminds me, actually, one of the lines that I read in the book is, you do not need a revolutionary idea to become an entrepreneur. And so I feel like, a lot of those people from your business class were out there trying to sell the world on something. They're trying to sell them on a new concept, new idea, but the world is already sold on a lot of ideas that they already need. You can take a small idea that the world already needs and put a big amount of effort into it, rather than taking a big idea and trying to launch that idea into the world.
Yeah, I think the wealthy people that I know, and when I define wealth, they do what they want to do when they want to do it. They have control of their time. They travel, they play golf, they have financial wealth as well, but they spend time with their kids. They generally do what they want to do. 99% of them started an old-fashioned business that already existed. Sure, they innovated, but it wasn't their idea that got them wealthy. It was the execution. It was their ability to sell, their ability to hire, delegate, manage, solve problems, make decisions. Those things are what separated them and helped them build wealth. And so everybody thinks they need a groundbreaking idea. And that's a myth about entrepreneurship. It's just not, it's simply not true.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my buddies when I used to live in Kauai, he was a surfer who worked for 18 months and then retired. He did it because he bought a house. People, oh, is real estate a good investment? Well, yeah, he bought a house in San Diego, traded it for some storage out in Texas and a home on Kauai, which at the time was a bit undervalued. Then a little bit later traded his home on Kauai for 2 homes on Kauai, so he's a multimillionaire who literally worked for 18 months and then retired and has just surfed ever since. The self-storage.
One little deal back in
Yeah.
2015 changed my whole world. I was running my pickup and delivery storage business. I realized that was kind of a hard business. It wasn't ever going to scale to the kind of revenue and profit I needed to accomplish my goals. So we built a self-storage facility from the ground up. We said, hey, what's a business we can get into where average people make really good money? Didn't take us a long time to find the real estate game. And we built a self-storage facility, started in 2015, opened the doors in the spring of 2017, all in for $2.9 million. My partner and I own that building outright today, and it's worth $8 to $10 million. And that one deal could make it so that I never have to work again. Obviously, I can't help myself. I have an insatiable desire to do more and more and more and stress myself out. But that one boring self-storage facility, that I was not the only one in America to build a self-storage facility. It was nothing revolutionary. It was the same thing everybody else did. Totally changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you have both the value of the building itself, if you ever wanted to sell the building or the business, but then you also have the income from the business that's consistently bringing in monthly revenue on autopilot without you constantly, people on the phone calling because they need you to put out fires. They need you to do this,
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
right.
think that you put it really well earlier when you said that, redefining wealth. A lot of people, wealth, oh, it's going to be a lot of money, but how much of your time is going to be tied up in that money? How much of your day, how much of your week do you get nights off? Do you get weekends off? So I think a lot of people who are trying to scale and become rich don't realize that perhaps true wealth.
Step one is to look down the hall.
Yeah.
What does winning the game that you're about to play look like? So many people, and this is the best career advice that I was ever given. When I was sitting in college before I started my company, thinking about what I wanted to do, one of my mentors said, look down the hall at what winning looks like. If you play a game, what is the life like? Not the income. What is the life like of the people who win that game over the next 10, 20, 30 years? And then I looked at professions like law and medicine and accounting and even PE, private equity. And you see a bunch of 50 to 60-year-olds who are unhealthy, working a ton, divorced, they have a wake of broken relationships. They have no time for themselves, but they're rich as hell. But that's not wealth to me. So I think a massively beneficial exercise in this world is to figure out what your number is on a monthly basis that you need coming in to live the life you want to live. And Jules, I think you've done some work on this. Maybe you can speak on this because you were just telling me about some plans that you have for where you're going to live in the world and what you're going to do. But I did that exercise back in 2013, 14 when I was in the early stages of entrepreneurship. And I realized that with $20,000 coming in every single month, I could live the life I wanted to live. Maybe that's higher now because of the inflation that we've seen in the last 5 years. But with $20,000 in 2014 coming in every single month, I could put my kids in a good school. I could live in a nice house. I could join a decent country club. I could go to a restaurant without looking at the right side of the menu. I could and that's the life I wanted to live. So if you put that as the as the goalpost, that's the end zone for me. And all my decisions are going to be filtered through that. I didn't need to start $1 billion tech startup. I needed to find a way to make that money with a reasonable quality of life.
Yeah. And to that point, I think that there's like a window of time as well, because true wealth to me right now is that my daughter's 10 years old. And this is a critical window in our timing to build that relationship. So the fact that I can knock off work and pick her up from school at 2:00 every day and not be tied to a business where I have to be present there is amazing. Building that father-daughter relationship is more important than there's no point in the future where if I have $1 billion, I can go back and get that time back.
Yep. Absolutely. There's the way I've heard it put is there's many gardens of life and you have to water them all. If you only water your career and your money making ability, then your health is going to fall apart. Your relationships are going to fall apart. Your hobbies, your spirituality, all the things that are important to you, the other gardens are going to suffer. You only have so much water.
That's a great way of putting it. I've heard the grass is greener on the other side of the mountain. And then no, actually the grass is greener where you water it, Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me about Somewhere. Somewhere is a recruiting firm, but it's not the traditional approach that most people would take to opening a business. I think that you got into it in a very untraditional method, and I'd love to hear more about that. So tell me
Yeah.
how you got involved in Somewhere.
I was a customer first. The company was about a year old. It was founded by a friend of mine, Marshall Haas. It was the name was Support Shepherd back then. I got involved early as a customer, and I hired 3 customer service reps in the Philippines for my self storage portfolio. That was 2021 when I did that, and everything changed about the way I thought about the world and hiring. Went on to have that business grow a lot very quickly. I invested in the business early, and then I bought the majority of the business about a year ago. On May 1st, 2024, I closed on the acquisition of the business as a whole. But yeah, 160 employees now. We just do boring old recruiting services all over the world, though. We're placing executives in South Africa, assistants in Philippines, marketing operations, developers in Latin America. So yeah, it's for U.S. businesses who want to build worldwide teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a fantastic agency. And it's so interesting because a lot of people, would think I need to go out and start a business. I need to do this. I really feel like there's no need to. There's no one way. There's no fixed way to do things. There's no one way. No, you don't have to go out and start a business. Guess what? You know what? You can invest in a business. You can help another business grow. You could take over a business. You could acquire a business. It
Mm-hmm.
just goes to show that there's so many possibilities because you've done all of them. You started the business from the ground up with the self-storage, but then you've also helped acquire a business that you saw as a valuable, albeit boring, business opportunity that makes a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. The traditional way of bootstrapping and starting a business from scratch, I would argue is the best way for a lot of beginning entrepreneurs because you get this, you build up the skills, you build up the capital, you build up the decision-making ability to actually run a company at scale. Very hard to just jump into the world of entrepreneurship and buy a business. But that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is that there's no one way to win. There's literally thousands of different ways to win. If you just have that eye and that ear for opportunity, you can find some unbelievable things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that hard work is a part of that or being competent. So I was literally laughed out loud when I saw you on a podcast appearance. You were talking about hiring is like hunting, and it was a very bold statement. And I love it when people just take a bold approach and you were like, 75% of the people out there are incompetent. And I was like, oh my God, how true is that? And once you've been in business, once you've worked enough, you realize that actually kind of is true. So, at Somewhere, how do you help people switch that from getting, if you want them to transition away from hiring C-level people, how do you get them those A-level people?
Man, hiring is phenomenally hard. And frankly, you can do a lot of work. And I would give some people some tips on how to do some work at the beginning to weed out the incompetence. But there's really no way to tell until somebody gets started, which is the very hard part of entrepreneurship because hiring and firing is very expensive. I found that if you want to see or get quality work out of somebody, find a way to test them before you hire them. Give them an assessment, have them do, if you're hiring a graphic designer, look at their portfolio, have them do a paid project for you. If you want to hire a marketer, have them get into your Google Ads and tell you what they would do to change your Google Ads. And it goes all the way through to having finance folks build models, to having salespeople listen to your team's sales calls and provide their feedback and thoughts on opportunities. So doing a little bit of work at the beginning can save you a ton. I also love a typing assessment. It sounds crazy, but the faster somebody types, the more competent and the more likely they are to be in a job still 6 months later, which is our guaranteed window at somewhere.com. So the faster they type, the less likely they are for one of our clients to come back for a client guarantee. So we do give a typing assessment to all hires across all of our companies, from C-level to American hires to assistants in the Philippines. We have them do a typing test first. So that's a test. But yeah, the hiring is really tricky because 75% of folks, generally speaking, are not great at making decisions. They're not great managers. They will underwhelm you on the job. They're B, C players. Also, 80% of people who are so if we take the A players, now we're talking 25% of the workforce, 90% of them have jobs they like and they have bosses that don't want to lose them. So you as an entrepreneur, you have to hunt for that talent. You have to go find it and you have to go out and get it, because if you post a job on Indeed or LinkedIn, those folks aren't going to apply because they have a job they like and a boss that doesn't want to lose them.
Yeah. Oh, you'll get a few hundred submissions, but not good ones.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So you've talked about cash discipline, and I feel like a lot of lessons are kind of hard earned in real life. So, Walk me through one of these financial mistakes that you've made, if you don't mind, to where you realized, okay, something's got to change. I gotta figure this out.
Yeah, our first I just bragged about how that first self-storage deal changed my life. That one that we were all in for 2.9 million and it's worth 8 or 10 million dollars today. What is the difficult and stressful part of that story is that when we were building that building, we started with a $1.7 million budget. So we went in with a $1.7 million budget, and that 2.9, it's a little bit complex. We bought the property across the street for $400K, but we went $600,000 over budget on that first development. I had to go back to investors to ask them for more money. I had to go back to the bank and ask them for more money. It was super, super stressful. And I learned a very valuable lesson, and that is manage expectations. One difficult conversation at the beginning of a deal or a relationship will save you 5 or 10 difficult conversations later, because every bit of stress in life is unmet expectations. You've told somebody that you're going to do something and you're not delivering, or you don't have the ability to deliver. That's where all stress comes from. So as a leader, sometimes it's very hard to manage those expectations and tell people what you can and can't do at the very beginning, but it's worth it. And then, yeah, as far as my life goes, I live a really frugal life on a day-to-day basis as far as collecting overhead. I don't like life overhead. So I'm still living in a house I bought for $300,000, for example.
Yeah. For the audience, that's on the East Coast, by the way.
It's in Athens, Georgia. So it's a 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house, 10 minutes from downtown.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually have a lot of friends from San Diego who move to the East Coast to buy up homes and live really nice lives, at 1/3 of the cost of California prices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the weather tax.
So, you have a number of sustainable businesses that are bringing in income. And it's interesting that you talk about boring, because I feel like, what our company does, you could also call perhaps boring. We iterate, we take marketing that works, and then we have a very specific methodology of we take the marketing that's working and continue a portion of that. We experiment with a small portion of ad spend. And then we continue doing the stuff over and over again. You might think, hey, if something's working, just keep running it. And it's like, yes. And, we take the stuff that's working and keep running it, but we also iterate, expand, because life changes. If you aren't constantly changing and you're running stuff that was working like 2-3 years ago, it's not going to be sustainable. So tell me on the growth side, especially with a business like Somewhere, how do you reach clients? How do you intend to grow your company?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about business is that there's a funnel all the way down through to getting paid from a client. And at the top of it is marketing. How many leads are you getting? Then it's your sales team. Of those leads, what percentage of them are they converting? Then it's your operations team to deliver and actually get paid for the product. And sometimes the hard part is the operations in a lot of service businesses. In a product business, sometimes the hard part is the marketing and the sale. But I like to look at every part of that funnel and try to find the lowest hanging fruit to improve it. So for example, we're getting 40 leads per day right now. How do we get that to 45? And it's just like you said, iterate on new ad campaigns. Maybe it's a referral program. I like doing scrappy things that don't scale, like cold DMs. And, I grew my first business with sidewalk chalk on the ground on these college campuses. But then it's about fine tuning your sales team. And that's something I've been doing and obsessing over for the past 6 to 12 months is, hey, and if you take my storage company, for example, we get 100 phone calls a day. This is our busy season. We get 100 phone calls a day from potential clients. Now, a lot goes into that. We're doing ads. We have Google reviews. We have a lot of campaigns to get our phone to ring. But once our phone rings, a year ago, we were converting 30% of those phone rings to rentals. We were renting 30 minutes a day. We have been experimenting and iterating with promotions and training our sales team and running new scripts and practicing new frameworks and improving the skills of our sales team, actually. We moved our sales team to South Africa. That was a big lever, but we increased from 30% to 40%. So we went from renting 30 units a day to renting 40 units a day with nothing else changing. The phone was ringing the same amount of times.
Right.
But that's a massive growth lever inside your business. So not enough people, and it involved hiring a head of sales in South Africa, hiring new sales reps in South Africa, having a lot of variable comp to incentivize them and pay them well if they rent units. But yeah, I'm deep in the weeds on improving every single step in the funnel, because If the leads stay the same, you can still make more money if you convert more of those leads into paying customers.
Yeah. And I think so many people are focused on traffic only and just like, how many people can we get here? And it's like, well, no, how many people can you get there? And then how many people are going to convert into customers? And then also, I think looking at, where your employees are, you've hired these people in South Africa, you have a great team, you have your A players, but I think they're going to cost you a lot less than if you were just to hire locally in the US and you said, no, I need a US manager,
Yep. Yeah, a highly trained closer in South Africa is $1,800 a month base plus another $500 a month of commission, where this person in the United States is 70,000 plus. So it's massive difference.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, that's awesome. So if you had like, this magic superpower, you could say, hey, this is the one thing that I'm struggling with and I'm going to just destroy it, and because I want to 2x my company, I want to 10x my company over the next 5 years. What would you do?
I would incentivize referrals. That's just something else that we're working on doing at our clients with 3 of our companies actually, is to how do we get that virality factor, the number of people that one of our customers tells, how do we increase that? And we found that literally paying them cash to send us customers works. Hey, if one of your friends rents a storage unit, we're going to send you $100 gift card to the nicest restaurant in town. What is it? They're going to have that in the back of their head as their friends are talking about moving, right? Sure. If you send us a client at somewhere.com, I'll give you $500 cash. Okay. That just makes you more excited to tell your friends about hiring a new rep or a new VA on somewhere.com. So those things, the jury is out on whether or not it'll 2x the company, but I'm pretty excited about the early traction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that everybody wants to do the right thing. I think that everybody wants to give referrals when they're like, hey, I actually had a really good experience with this storage facility. You should give it a try. Everybody wants to do the right thing. But when you give them $100, everybody extra wants to do the right thing,
Yeah.
All right. So I do want to talk more about the book because this is a really fantastic resource. And I think that it gets into some really important concepts: capital, skills, network. There's not one thing that is going to earn you success. Talk about that, like comprehensive, holistic approach to success that you have.
Yeah. What so many entrepreneurs get wrong is that they try to take a big swing, or they expect to take a big swing at the very beginning of their career when they don't have experience delegating, selling, operating, leading other people. All those things are muscles that it takes experience and practice to improve upon. Like you build a muscle by going to the gym and lifting the weight, not listening to a podcast, not watching a YouTube video. So in my opinion, my early business, yes, we made a little bit of money, but the most valuable thing that I got out of my first business was the operational ability, the skills I learned, and then I made money. And frankly, it's way easier to run a business when you have cash. It's very hard to grow and scale a company without any money. It's very hard to hire. It's very hard to market. It's very hard to sell. Every decision is very high risk. It gets stressful if you don't have cash. And then there's the network side of things: who to hire, who's going to buy from you, who's going to partner with you, who's going to invest with you. All those things combined are likely to either set you up for success or failure in a business, depending on how good you are at each of those things: the capital, the network, and the skills. So the first business is about acquiring those. It's not necessarily about the money. I learned a ton running Storage Squad.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to use the momentum to get into a little bit better of a business, use the momentum, get into a little bit better of a business, and start to grow and expand as an entrepreneur. So I think if you take a holistic approach to business and start to pack on some of those skills and play the long game, momentum takes over, and it's just unbelievable what can happen in 5, 7, 10 years in business. If you would have told me like 5 years ago, I was in dorms lugging boxes still. Yeah. 10 years ago, I was on the ground and our first self-storage facility was under construction. My net worth was 0, basically.
Or negative 2 million.
Right, because we borrowed some money. So yeah, what people don't understand about entrepreneurship is it's a long game and it's cumulative and it's so much about momentum. So if you can be patient and acquire those skills, very, very good things happen. So the book is about some of those skills, whether it be sales, which I think is one of the most important skills of an entrepreneur because life is sales. We can discuss that if you want. Decision making, delegation, hiring. Those are all very intimidating, difficult things to do that if you have the right mindset and if you have the right approach and you start to pack on those skills, you become a highly effective entrepreneur. So my book is about the most important things that you need to learn to run a high level business or make a lot of money at a company. by adding value to it.
Yeah. The Sweaty Startup is available on Amazon. I saw that it's an audiobook format, which I'm a huge fan of. So I'm going to be listening to that book the rest of it while I'm, canyon running with my dog. I think that love audiobooks, but I also saw it's in hardcover, it's in paperback, it's an ebook. Yeah.
Yeah. So Amazon's the place to go. If you look for the Sweaty Startup, you'll find it.
Yep.
I
And
read the audiobook myself, so there's that.
audience, you actually don't even have to look for it because the link is actually right down here. Go ahead and look right down below this podcast, and you're going to see a link to the book. And go ahead and grab a copy. It's really fantastic. Tons of really high level advice, and also really comprehensive. Again, there's a lot of really good niche texts out there. Read a ton of really good books on finance, but a lot of them are like, here's a book on finance, but if you already have money, and it's like, here's a book on this specific elements of how to build a business. But this is more comprehensive. This is more like, okay, but how do you get there? And I think that this comprehensive strategy of this and then this and then this and all of them combined is so much more powerful than just a very niche granular book that's only about one thing that's going to marginally help, but not really give you that down the hallway view that you were talking about earlier of like, okay, what is my role in this game and how am I going to win it?
I really appreciate it. And I think if I could leave some people with some parting thoughts, parting words, I know that when you're early on and maybe you're not making a ton of money, you look at folks who are wealthy and you think, wow, they must be spectacular people. I'll tell you that I know a lot of people who are making an unbelievable amount of money, but they're not spectacular. They're not insanely competent. They're not geniuses. The difference, I know a lot of these folks who make a ton of money simply because they're not insecure. They have a little bit of irrational confidence. They have that energy to go after problems. And they have that drive to take risk and not worry about what other people think. Because the path of entrepreneurship is different. It feels uncomfortable. People aren't going to support you. There's 1,000 reasons why anything might not work. And you actually might get some hate from people who get a little bit jealous if you start to see some success. You have to find a way to get past all that if you really want to accomplish something in this world. Because life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable, read the book, get more comfortable, develop that confidence, and get out there and get it. Start your business, learn the skills that you need. Nick, it was fantastic having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. I love your message and appreciate all that you do.